All right, folks, here's a tutorial on assembling the Arbor press. I went ahead and I opened up a brand new assembly, and I'm going to go up to the left. I'm going to place my first component. In this case, I'm going to place probably the table or the base first, and then the column second. You can go about it either way. You just want to make sure that as you are working on this, you are grounding your first piece. So here's the base. I'm going to select open. And then again, depending on how you draw it, you might want to utilize the right click menu and actually rotate this around. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, and then I'm going to get a little menu that pops up. I know I want to rotate it on the X first to kind of get it flat. A few times. There we go. And then if I look at it from an angle here, I want to rotate it on the Z. And again, this might not be what yours is, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click that. Now, what I should have done is right click and place that grounded, but since I didn't, I'm just going to right click the part over here on the left. I'm going to ground it. So that part's grounded. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place the column. I'm going to rotate the column on the Y a few times. Click. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to align the screw hole for the column and the base. So I'm going to go constrain. I'm going to find the center of this hole. Either the centers work or the center of the threaded hole. I'm going to apply those. I'm just going to cancel and bring that out. Then I'm going to mate the face here to this face. Apply. And then if you do that, this will still be able to rotate around. We don't want that to happen. So I'm going to constrain and actually flush the bottom of the base and the column, and that'll keep it upright. So I'll apply that. I'll get that in place. All right, good deal. Next, let's go ahead and bring in a few other pieces. I'm actually going to bring in the rack next. So I'm going to bring in the rack. Let's rotate that on the Z and then on the X a few times. And there we go. So we kind of wanted that orientation. Next, we're gonna, you can constrain this regularly if you want. You want that to stick inside of the channel here. I'm actually going to use a joint. And a joint is a constraint, and the difference between a constraint and a joint is a constraint is actually removing degrees of freedom, while a joint is actually defining more degrees of freedom. Like it can move this way and this way only. So for this joint, I'm going to select a slider constraint because I want this to slide up and down. And I'm going to select this face right here, the center dot. And I'm going to select this center dot on this face. Now, it's going to bring it in there. And the rotation is the wrong way, but that's okay. What we're going to do is we are going to invert alignment. So it is going up and down now, which is good. And then I am going to actually change how it's connected. So I know I want this connection to be there. And then I want my second connection to essentially, I want this to actually rotate up and down. So let's put that in there and we'll align it. So our first alignment is, that's fine, let's do our second alignment. So if you click on second alignment instead, I'm going to align this to a bottom face on the column. Let's see here. There we go. So I'm going to select that inside face. Still moves that way. So I'm going to apply this to the top and say the top is going to align with the bottom of the column. Let's play that. There we go. That's kind of what I want. So let's go through how we did that again. So I'm going to go joint. I'm going to select this face and this center dot once it shows up. I will invert alignment. I'm going to change that to slider. and I'm going to align. So I'm going to select my first alignment, which will be the top of my device. And then it'll ask me for the second alignment, which will be the bottom of the column here. And when I do that, you can see here I have the two arrows, one arrow going down, and I play that, and that will be the motion of that piece in there. So I'm going to apply that, and I'm just going to double check. Moves in there very nicely. Okay, next, place. Let's go ahead and bring in that gear. Ignore the hole in this gear. It's just something I was playing with. But in this gear, what we'll do is we're going to constrain, and we're going to align the centers. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flush this face of the gear and the face of the rack. Apply that. So now this should rotate in there. This goes up and down. Fantastic. And I'm going to do one more constraint here. I'm going to align these. So I'm going to move this so my gear are actually between the gears on my rack, kind of like this. And now I'm going to go to constrain. I'm going to make a motion constraint, and I'm going to select rotation translation. This is rotating, this is translating. So I'm going to select this face as my rotating component. And then I'm going to select an edge over here on this face as my translation component. And then my distance is essentially how much do I want this to move for every one rotation of this. And that's going to be a ratio of pi. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And I'm just going to double check it's not going the wrong way. So that sometimes happens. So there we go. As I move the gear, my rack also moves. A little rotational constraint. Pretty neat. So I have that in place. I'm going to go ahead and place now. Let's see here. What else? Eventually I'll bring those in. I'll bring my cover plate in. That can go over there. My gear plate, bring that there. Bring the key over there. Punch holder on the back. Rotary actuator back here. Table, and then the table pin, and then we'll put in some screws and stuff later. So all right, for this we got our table. Let's go ahead and constrain the centers of the table and this little hole right here. Apply. I'm going to bring that up a little bit, and I'm going to constrain then the bottom of the table to the top of the base. Apply. And then I'm going to align the centers of this together. And then I want to swap that because I want the chamfer to actually go down into the hole. Actually, do I? I think so. And then I want this to kind of sit down in the hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to constrain this edge. And this is going to be hard to see, actually. But I'm going to rotate it so I can see this edge right here. So this is the bottom of the hole. And I'm going to align those two edges together. So it's going to put those two together. The top of it is just like a little bit offset in there. And this will still rotate around there. I'm going to bring this up. And I know I have a rack pad. I'll bring the rack pad in because that's an easy one to constrain. So the center of the rack pad to the center here. And I'm just going to drag this up a little bit, and I am going to constrain the faces. Apply that. So now that can go up and down. I'll constrain the back punch holder to here. I'm going to flip that. Apply. And then I'll constrain the top. Get the center there, that should line up. And then the back here and the back there. If those centers don't line up, That means the distance between those two holes is wrong, either on your column or on the punch holder. Okay. I can put this front cover on. So I'll line up that hole. This will be able to rotate on there. So I'm going to align this hole with this bottom hole. So I kind of just did the two opposite holes. And then I will throw the faces aligned. Make sure I click the right face. So that face and that face. Okay, so that's in position. Looks good. Now the gear plate. Line up the centers of that and that. Apply. Pull it out just a bit. Now I'm going to line up the center of these holes. I only need to do one. The other two will be good. And then I'm going to throw this face onto that face. Apply. So now that's covered on that side. This still works. Okay. Next, I need to bring in the spindle. Okay, so the spindle already has a key in it, which makes it nice and easy. So the spindle is going to go right here in that area. So to do this, I'm going to first align this, and then this face, this kind of little nub that comes up. I'm going to align those two. This comes out. Then I'm going to constrain this face to that face. Apply. And then this should still be able to turn, which it does. Okay. Okay, next. Do we do this one yet? Sure. I'm going to go ahead and constrain this to this piece right here. So we'll just line up the holes over here and here. All right, so this just, I think this needs to be flipped. So this piece, so this hole will need to go into this hole. Apply, and then this one aligned with this one. Apply. Let's pull this out. Does that make sense? Yep. And then next, we will go ahead and put this face right on that face. Apply. So good position. We have this key in. We're going to put that key here in a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my column, and I'm going to turn off the visibility so I can see inside of there. I am going to right click on my gear, turn off the visibility, right click on my spur gear, turn off the visibility, and now this rotates around. For the key, we're going to go ahead and put the key in now. So best way to put this key in is going to be, let's do this. I'm going to constrain this face to this face right here. I will then constrain the centers together, apply, and then this will, it'll be in there, but you can see here it can kind of like rotate, or it can like rock back and forth in that little area. So now in my spindle and in my key, I'm going to go constrain. I'm going to go angle, and I'm going to go to the top of my key, and I'm going to click the top, and I'm going to do an undirected angle. And I want this angle to always be 0 degrees from a part on the spindle. This will be the XZ plane in this case. So I'm going to apply that, and then this should rotate and not move around too much, which is fantastic. I'm going to find my gear, and I'm going to turn on the visibility of my gear. And I am going to, and it's going to be a little difficult. Let's see if I can get this done. What I want to happen is as I turn this spindle, I want to be able to also turn the gear. So I'm going to rotate this till I see the key. I can see the side of the key in there. And I'm going to say that this side of the key is going to be, I'm not going to make it flush because it might not be the same size. So I'm going to do an angle undirected again between that face of the key and one of the sides of the keyway. I'm going to apply that. So now when I turn this spindle, it turns the gear and it turns the rack. I can go ahead and turn on the visibility of my other parts. And I pretty much have all the major parts in there for this. The next part is actually just to go ahead and insert all the screws and go from there. So I'm going to just quickly show that one. So we've got an 832 half-inch screw. This one will actually go into these areas, so this is easy. I'm going to go constrain in there. I'm going to flip that, apply, and then I'll just say that face and the face on my screw right here. Those should be touching. Apply. And there's one screw. So that's kind of the operation you're going to go through for each one. For the countersunk screws here, instead of doing the inside face, let's see if we can find that countersunk screw. It's a large column screw, cover plate screw, punch holder screw. Open that. Same thing here and here. Flip that, apply. And then this one I'll do a flush from this face and the column screw. I'll apply it there. So now that is in position, screwed in there. You can do the same thing for that one. You have a screw down here. You have 4 here, 2 more here, and then the 2 back here to put the actuator on, and you have yourself your assembly. So not a quick vid, something to refer back to as you need help with stuff.